The battles of Saratoga were a series of battles that culminated the Battle of Saratoga and the surrender of British General John Burgoyne. This decisive victory by the Americans was a turning point in the Revolutionary War. The main leader of the British Army was General John Burgoyne. The Americans were led by Major General Horatio Gates as well as General Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold did not get along with General Gates. At one point they had a heated argument and Gates relieved Arnold of his command. British General Burgoyne had to come up with a plan to defeat the American colonies, and he would split the colonies in two along the Hudson River. The colonies divided, he was sure they could not stand alone. Burgoyne was to lead his army south of Lake Champlain to Albany, New York. At the same time, General Howe was to advance north along the Hudson River. They would meet at Albany. Burgoyne and his army successfully advanced south. They first recaptured Fort Ticonderoga from the Americans, then proceeded to march south. General Howe, however, had other plans. Instead of heading north to Albany, he headed east to take Philadelphia. Burgoyne was on his own. As the British continued south, the Americans harassed them along the way. They cut down trees to block the roads and took shots at soldiers from the forests. Burgoyne's progress was slow, and the British began to run out of food. Burgoyne sent out some of his soldiers to Bennington, Vermont, to find food and horses. However, Bennington was guarded by American General John Stark. They surrounded the British troops and captured around 500 soldiers. It was a decisive victory for the Americans and weakened the British forces. The First Battle of Saratoga took place on September 19, 1777, on the farmland of British loyalist John Freeman. Daniel Morgan led 500 sharpshooters to the field where they saw British advancing. They were able to take out a number of officers before the British to attack. At the end of the battle, the British gained control of the field, but they suffered 600 casualties, twice as many as the Americans. After the Battle of Freeman's Farm, the Americans set up their defenses at Bemis Heights. More militiamen arrived, and the American forces continued to grow. On October 7, 1777, the British attacked. Their attacks failed miserably, and they were defeated by the Americans. British casualties mounted to nearly 600 men, and General Burgoyne was forced to retreat. The Americans, under General Gates, pursued the British army. Within days, they had them surrounded. The British surrendered on October 17, 1777. The Battle of Saratoga and the surrender of the British army under General Burgoyne was one of the major turning points of the Revolutionary War. The Americans' morale was boosted, and the country now felt like it could win the war. Just as important to the war, the French decided to support the Americans with military aid and be a part of them as an ally. This was now a boost to the Americans. Nothing could stop them since they now had allies. The British was now backing up and decided to head north. Soon after, they became their own 13 states and now what as we know as America. This is the Battle of Saratoga by Matt Easterday, Vinny Santoro, Max Peruto, and Tommy Erdman.